Thank you for joining us. We've got 30 attendees right now, so it's good. Bit introduction, I'm Anthony. I'm the Director of Product at Localyze, representing the brand today in my hoodie. Today, we'll be diving into the topic of immigration and visa trends in 2024. We'll look at key insights into how immigration laws are changing, how businesses can make the most of global labor migration, and how to scale global mobility projects like relocations and workations in a way that not just gets you the best talent, but also helps you retain it. So without further ado, let's welcome our speakers who are joining us today. Daisy, let's start with you. Please introduce yourself and then hand round.
Hello there. This is my second LinkedIn Live of the week. I'm Daisy Ilaria. I am the Senior Talent Acquisition Manager at ESPRIT, which is a global clothing brand. I hope to give some good insights from a recruiter's perspective about global mobility and what's going on in the market at the moment. So I'm really excited to be part of this.
Nice. Yeah, Iaroslav.
Okay. Hello, I'm Iaroslav. I am originally from Soviet Union. 30 years ago, came to Germany. Have more than 20 years experience in global mobility, in international assignments, international payroll, and so on. Now I live the Lake of Constance, very close to the Swiss and Austrian border. And I'm happy to give a little bit insight regarding the current trends in Germany regarding the immigration.
Nice, thank you.
Claire?
Great, thanks. I'm Claire Fielding. I'm a director in the advisory practice at Air Inc., helping businesses to plan effectively for when they're globalizing workforce. I've been in mobility in various guises for well over 10 years, and I've actually kind of been an expat myself. I've lived and worked in Hong Kong before, so kind of been on that side of the coin as well. So looking forward to speaking with you all today and sharing some insights. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be launching a quick poll through Zoom. So don't be alarmed if it pops up in your window. Just select an answer A to D. And what we'll do is we'll post the results at the end of the webinar in between kind of our conversation and Q&A. So you better stick around to find out what the results are. There. Cool. So awesome. So I'll kick off with our first question around global mobility in 2024 trends. What are the key emerging visa and immigration trends that you foresee shaping the landscape in 2024? And how might these trends impact businesses and talent? Open to everyone.
I'm happy to kick off from my side. I think kind of the big topic that I'm kind of seeing that isn't particularly going away is work away schemes, or they're called various different things, the nomad visas and things that tend to come up quite a lot that are quite fashionable. A lot of businesses are kind of using them as to attract a lot of talent, but I think behind that initial kind of bringing people in, there's the making sure from the compliance side that the business is able to actually support those. The business understands them. Like I said, it's one of those things that tends to sound very good at a high level, but actually behind it there's still the need to make sure that the compliance is in place, and if there's any cost aspects that the business is aware of that. So for me, I don't necessarily think these are going away. I think if anything, they're just going to increase in prevalence. So it's going to be really key that businesses do carve out the time to understand these, and also understand if that's something that their business is able to and wants to support as well.
Just to chime in there, I've seen that businesses are asking for people to come back 4 to 5 days a week and scrapping their remote working contracts and policies. I don't know if we're allowed to say company names. I saw Deutsche Bahn was on the news, etc. And it had a lot of like internal backlash from their colleagues. And I saw stuff on LinkedIn as well. So I saw that, of course, the digital nomad visas, especially in Spain, etc., are really popular at the moment. But the companies are asking for people to come back to the office. I thought that was a really interesting turn of events comparing to what happened in COVID and what's happening at the moment.
Exactly. I can also confirm that the companies would like to get people back, even it is really complicated, but a lot of big companies like, let me say, Goldman Sachs, they are insisting to get people back. As first, almost 100%. They're not allowing to work abroad, to work from abroad, and this vocation, so-called vocation, is also not allowed by a lot of companies, a lot of global manufacturing companies, of course, and a lot of consulting companies. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna kind of touch on the points Claire and Iaroslav and Daisy you made there. Like people come back to the office, but obviously workations and compliance. Do you think that the compliance thing is why people are saying no to workations now, getting their compliance in order, and then going to do it again? Like, how do you reckon there's a cycle there?
I think it's going to be interesting because I completely agree. Like, I think there are definitely calls for people to come back to the office, especially in certain industries, as it is quite prevalent. But it's interesting that some of these companies have also, in the not too distant past, actively said we support flexible working. We encourage people to be working remotely, and so it's very interesting that was maybe a sales pitch that they were pushing to attract talent in the not too distant past. How are they going to almost backtrack on that, and how do you honor that from people that joined when that was a thing? I don't know the answer. I think it's really interesting if businesses are changing their thought process around that from a fairness perspective. How are they going to kind of, how's that going to work in practice? I'll be really, really interested to see how that plays out in real time.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very interesting time, right? The next sort of question, like Iaroslav, immigration laws in Germany will change this year, becoming more flexible, right? In the hopes of attracting more international talent. Do you expect these to have a positive effect quickly, or like at all?
On the long run, yes, but not quickly. Definitely. Also, why we can get it resolved in Germany in a really short period. The main problem is lack of qualified staff in the authorities. That's why I have really experience. I've 30 years experience, and I started as a young law student in Berlin. I can recall on my visits to the Friedrich Krause Ufer 24. I will never forget it. This is the address of the Foreigners Office in Berlin, and waiting starting from 4 EM for admittance. And okay, the times are has been changed, but at the same time, they still don't have enough qualified staff, and we have to deal with delays, with certain delays. From otherwise, the number of applicants will be certainly increase because of the new recent changes in German legislation. The people will get easier, according to the law. The people will be able to come easier to Germany, but at the same time, the people with more seniority, also with more senior people who has family, who has children, they will still wait for change in legislation with regarding to pensions, regarding to healthcare, and so on, because these problems are still not resolved in Germany, because in Germany we can easily go to the doctor if we are in the big city. We can really we can get we can easily get to the doctor. If we are in the small city, we have not enough medical doctors like pediatrists and so on. That's why in certain cases people are just asking just thinking of not to come into Germany, because they have they will get more problems than in the country of the origin. Just in short.
Sure. Nice. That's good. I mean, it's positive changes in the future, but there's stuff to be worked out in terms of in the operational side in the short term.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. And Daisy, with the increased emphasis on skilled immigration, what strategies can businesses employ to navigate the competition for those top talent in key markets this year?
Oh, it's a good question. I'm just going to go with what I know and what I've witnessed, and with my recruiter friends' perspectives as well. So I hope that it's a collective enough answer. I think to answer your question, companies just need to, if they want to adapt, they need to be more open-minded, right? So you see a lot of jobs that say like, oh, must be X national, must speak X language, and it just limits their talent pool so much. I think everybody knows this, right? So if your position and your company is going to be more global, to just be more open-minded, and open up to locations for the position, if it can be fully remote, or open up to more cultures and nationalities applying, right? Be more inviting. So I think be more open-minded for companies. That's kind of a given. Of course, implement a global mobility structure within the company, whether it's a designated department, a person. I think just having a team who is fully dedicated on relocations and giving like a boutique service to candidates is a must. So of course, using tools like Localyze. I haven't been paid to say that, but using tools like Localyze or Deal, that's another company as well that facilitates relocations effortlessly. Absolutely. I think that would be a game changer instead of just, I've seen it in companies before where relocation is just kind of done ad hoc, and you're finding out about, oh, how to relocate a person from X to Amsterdam or to the UK, and it gets a bit messy and there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances. So being open-minded, number one, implementing a global mobility team or dedicated member in a company, that will definitely give you a competitive edge. And yeah, make sure you're saying this on socials, right? Amp up on employer branding. Make sure you're stating this in your job adverts, on any social platforms like your LinkedIn business page, etc. And you have colleagues also shouting about it as well, that you are very, culturally open-minded and focused, and that anyone can apply for this position. I think just, amping up on employer branding in that aspect also really would give you a competitive edge. I hope that answers your question fully.
Yeah, awesome. And perfect segue into the second one, because the next one, which is like, once you've found this international talent, as you mentioned, it can quickly get really complicated to move them and relocate them to a hub where you kind of operate. It's like, Claire, Iaroslav, can you suggest any strategies that can drive projects like that global mobility team forward effectively, ensuring like success and stakeholder alignment?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just kind of follows nicely on from what Daisy was saying, in that having, if possible, just having a person in the business or a dedicated kind of point person who is that mobility contact is key, just to give that kind of human touch point in the process. And I think making sure, from a mobility perspective, making sure that all stakeholders are kind of informed what mobility does, because it tends to be a bit of a, I don't know what the right word is, problem child mobility. People don't really know what it's about or where it sits or when they should come and speak to them. So I think, if the mobility person or the mobility team can really, make a point of contacting talent, HRBPs, and just letting them know what mobility does, that the door's always open, when they should contact them, that makes it a lot easier if any problems do arise. If as well, and this will vary depending on the size of the business, if it's a very large business, they probably already have very established policies. So making sure everyone's aware of what the policy is and if there's any issues, who to speak to. But even if the company isn't quite established enough to have a full suite of mobility policies, just agreeing a general framework with those key stakeholders can really help the process. So, if talent identifies a candidate that might need immigration, okay, then they can speak to mobility, and then mobility will help them with a provider. Just understanding what the flow of kind of the processes really, really helps, rather than just dealing with it on an ad hoc basis. Because to Daisy's point, the biggest advocates of your mobility program, successful or unsuccessful, will be your employees. You know, it's that typical water cooler conversation, like, oh, what was your experience? Oh, if it was great, then they're your biggest, you know, marketers for your program. But equally, if it's not gone so well, so where possible, try not to leave it to chance. At least having a framework of some type, depending on your size, will definitely help that process.
Maybe some words from my side. We have some approaches how to bring people, also bring young people from country A to country B, and maybe our start as a first thoughts to start the ideas whether it's possible to bring this guy or lady from directly to our country. We would like to have him. In case this is not possible, we are trying to check two alternatives. The first one, whether we have the local entity which will be able to employ him for the certain period, transition period. Let me say up to 6 months. This is the trial period according to Germany, for example, from German contracts. Or in case we will not, it's not possible to employ him within the foreign entity for this period, we are thinking of to ask to take EORs as an employer of records for this period. But in any case, on the long run, we are trying to bring people to the direction, to the final destination at all time, and not letting them stay too long outside of the outside of country because of compliance and taxation issues. Yeah.
And good points. And I kind of want to pick on something like, Claire, you mentioned about global mobility being the problem child and you need to set up structures. And so how does the business effectively like integrate global mobility within their organizational framework to kind of switch this thought process and from being just a benefit to an actual strategic objective that will make significant difference to the business?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think it's a point that a lot of businesses can struggle with. I think historically, and also a lot of businesses currently, mobility is seen purely as operational, so it's seen to be there to execute on, you know, moves and be the very reactive as and when the business needs it. Whereas I think in reality, mobility has a much greater beneficial role when it's brought in earlier in the process as a more strategic partner. It definitely holds that operational, you know, role later on down the line, but I think it's also really, really beneficial for businesses when mobility is brought in earlier, especially, for example, if the business is thinking about sending people to a certain location or opening a entity in a different location. Having mobility in at the start of those conversations can really help, especially when they're planning timing, to say, look, if you're going to be thinking about immigration, you've got a 3-month lag time that's going to add on, you know, to before you can get people from A to B. That becomes a lot more palatable when you're having that discussion earlier on. Whereas if mobility is brought in as an afterthought later on and you're going, oh, by the way, all these timelines that you've already agreed now need to be extended by 3 months because we weren't consulted, you didn't know. So I think it's really valuable to kind of, you know, be aware of when you're thinking about a project internationally. Just, you know, you typically bring in legal, finance, talent, almost automatically including mobility in that group. If there isn't any need for mobility to be in there for whatever reason, they can always back out, but just having that invite at the start. Also from a cost perspective, when you're costing out a project, mobility tend to have a much closer idea of what immigration type costs are going to be, what tax costs are going to be. So when you're costing out a project, you know, you're able to give that insight as well. So unfortunately, it can take time, especially if there's only a 1-person team, to kind of really raise that profile. But it is for that person to kind of say, hey, look, these are the things I can add in. And quite often or not, it's if there are a few war stories within the business, you know, the times that things maybe haven't gone so well, you can just say, hey, look, next time we're thinking of doing something, let's see if it will work better to come in a bit earlier and just give some insight. So Yeah, a bit of a protracted answer, and I think it does very much depend on kind of, again, the size of the team and what the business operationally is doing. But I think trying to get in as early as possible when there's those new locations, new groups of people is the key.
Yeah, raising the flag basically and using those war stories. Doesn't have to be from the company you're at.
Yeah.
X war stories probably also.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. I'm gonna kind of switch topic now and kind of let's chat a bit more about the, like, rather than just the trends, like expat talent hiring and relocation. So Daisy, do you think hiring international talent from beyond your own borders is becoming more common now? Do you think that trend is like growing or shrinking? Yeah, what's your thoughts?
I hire across Europe, but I think I'll just specifically talk about Amsterdam because I'm here. I'm an expat myself, living here for the last 6 years. I was also an expat in the UK because I'm originally from Italy, so I've moved different locations. So I'm kind of familiar with these two markets. It's definitely becoming more common. I think that I don't want to get cancelled for this, but companies that are, like closed-minded and only looking for like local talent, I think it reflects on their business too. So like just speaking from like an Amsterdam perspective, I've worked for like smaller, more niche companies before, and I had the conversations like, how can you aim to be a global company with only Dutch speaking like employees, right? So I think it just really reflects outside like who you have within the company. So I think it is becoming really common. Companies are expanding the horizons and becoming more international. This is just for Amsterdam, not for the UK, but there's some rumors going around here. I think I had some of these questions from people that wanted to come to the webinar. I can't see who's attended, so maybe these people came, but they've asked me about, oh, can you address these rumors? Of course, I don't work for the government, so I'm just going to try and talk about it hypothetically, that some big companies located here are looking to leave because apparently Amsterdam is not so expat friendly, which I find very unique and interesting because I'm an expat myself, so I find it really expat friendly here. So there are rumors that huge companies that are located here are looking to go for more expat friendly and tax friendly, should I say, locations such as Dubai and Switzerland. But however, we hear from our government and from, companies hiring right now that they want, and also there's like amped up with like thousands of houses being built every second of the day. Even outside my apartment, I can see loads of houses being built to be more attractive for expats. So there's that misalignment, I think, with our country specifically. Like, oh, companies want to relocate their head offices, but we want to have more housing for expats. So I think we need to align as a country what we want, but it looks like we're still relocating people. I mean, my company still relocates people from all over the world. And Amsterdam still feels very multinational and cultural. So yeah, I think it's still common, but there are some raised eyebrows and questions as to what's going to happen in the near future. If big companies do relocate, I think we're going to have some issues with our workforce.
Interesting. I hadn't heard those rumors. Those are very interesting.
Yeah, it's circling around. It's making us a bit worried.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not true. So
Me too.
Yaroslav, like and so when you've relocated employees, like what are some long-term strategies that businesses can adopt to proactively versus reactively address the needs of those relocated employees? Because sometimes they've got to move their whole family, their whole lives. So how do you ensure that smooth transition?
Oh, yes, great question. I would say the first very important thing, people who moves to the host country, they need to speak the host country language. Even we are in Amsterdam, even in the Netherlands, they need to speak a local language, at least in the absolutely basics. That's why companies I worked with, we always offered the language lessons in the language of the host country, for spouse also, and for children. Furthermore, it's very important to prepare some kind. This is not really costly, but not really expensive. But in our head office, as in Germany, located in southern Germany, we prepared handouts to expatriates or transferees from abroad in English, explaining the important parts like child benefits, because you can try. You have no experience, but you can try to call hotlines of child benefit in Germany. You will wait 40 minutes, and they will answer in German. They don't speak English as it was previously. Some different language, but they answer in German, and then you will get problems. That's why we're explaining. Also, some small handouts which are provided to the expatriates or through transferees, or maybe with addresses of therapists, pediatrists who speaks English. It is maybe more important for small cities, for small cities than for Berlin. Then I would say very important. We are also offering the tax pre-arrival meetings. This is not by us. This is held not by us, but the tax advisors, because sometimes the people not really understand when they move to Germany or to another country what is the net take home. They are speaking about salary. They have these contracts, but they have no idea what they will get net at the end of the day. That's why it's very important, because also offering for the first year, also for the first year of employment, we're offering also tax advisory services in order to understand to let the people understand how it works. This is maybe the three important things. Yeah.
Nice. And anyone want to add to that? No. I think something I heard at a conference last year was I can't remember who it was, global mobility manager. So they did a survey of expats who left and why, and the predominant reason was spousal integration, which was a really interesting one, like in terms of integration of the family. So it's a really interesting thing to kind of make sure people and their families are integrated proactively, which is really important. Kind of switching gears a little bit, considering the growing trend of remote work. I mean, all of us now are kind of in remote working situations as well, right? What are the key factors that we think like are essential businesses to consider when hiring remote employees, and how can they effectively assess and manage fully remote teams? Daisy?
Of course, I'm joking. I have a fully remote team now in Germany, and I have a team member in New York as well. I'll talk more about like my first ever experience working with someone fully remote, because that was really the most eye-opening and what taught me the most. In my previous job, I had a recruitment sourcer. So I was like the account manager, and this person was sourcing for me like profiles and CVs and just helping me with the jobs. And he was based in Bulgaria, all the way in Bulgaria. So I met him once when he visited us in Amsterdam, and then the rest of the time he was based there. So that was really my first experience, working with someone and managing someone fully abroad. I think what helped me the most was just like understanding expectations with that person. I think if you presume someone wants to work a certain way, or you don't want to come across as like a micromanager or anything, right? Like you just want to have healthy communication with that person or team member or team, but understand how they want to be communicated by. Maybe they don't want phone calls every day, every hour. Maybe they don't like just emails and want to hop on video calls with you and make it more personal. And you need to just understand boundaries at the end of the day, right? So I think asking that question from the beginning, like, how do you want to be communicated? Like, is it email? Is it WhatsApp? Do you like phone calls? Do you want to do video calls? Just understanding boundaries, and also like their personality. I think it makes a huge difference. And what I find helps me now is just being available. I'm not sure, of course, depending on the company and the size, if that's possible for certain leaders and managers or team members, but as a leader, being available for my team, and being supportive and being there for them no matter what, just reassures them that even though they're based somewhere else, that I am there for them. I think the challenges are team buildings. How do you include someone that's not in your country or based abroad? How do you include them in your company culture and your team buildings? I've done it in various ways. I can talk about this for days, but of course, virtual drinks, for example, and coffees and stuff are always helpful. I have like a weekly coffee catch up with my team every Wednesday morning, weekly check-ins with individuals in the team, visiting the country. So I actually take time out and go to Germany or wherever my team is located, and I go visit once or twice a month to make sure I actually get some FaceTime with my team. I think that's part of my job to do that. But yeah, just being creative, I think, with including team members and teams, just to make sure that they're part of the culture. I rambled a bit. Sorry. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. As Claire, Iaroslav, you got anything to add?
No, I think I would just echo as someone who works remotely. Yeah, I definitely think the kind of respecting boundaries is huge. It's it's your basic, just have trust and in your team, and know that people work slightly differently. So people may want to work a little bit later, in which case is any ability to build flexibility into the day and let them, people start a bit later. I think when people work remotely, they tend to sometimes work longer because you don't have that end-to-end commute that kind of very defines your day. So I think just work out what works best for each team member. If you can recognize that everyone's a little bit different, people have different needs and different demands on their time, and if possible, there's typically a core hours that you most people tend to need to work, but either side of that is their flexibility, which will really help people feel like you're hearing them and respecting them as individuals as well.
Yeah, very good points. Bits and pieces throughout this conversation kind of raised obviously the financial aspect of relocation. Like Claire, you mentioned about like planning it, like you kind of know the budgeting constraints and those sorts of things. And Jaroslav, you mentioned tax, but so how can businesses mitigate those financial risks or potential financial risks associated with international hiring relocation? Because it's not free, right? It does cost money, and you need to shift people and their lives across borders. And what resources are available to support them in that process, and how do you mitigate those risks?
I think from my side, just quickly, there's different kind of levels of looking at the cost from the business angle. I think, at the kind of macro level, if you're working with suppliers, it's making sure that, you've got a good financial agreement with your suppliers. If you've been with the same supplier for a really long time, is it worth, just rechecking on fees, making sure, see if there's anything that, any adjustments or any more efficiencies that can be done from the fee perspective. Just making sure it's not necessarily getting the cheapest providers, but making sure that you are getting the best deal as the client from a provider. Then kind of drilling down, slightly deeper into exactly what the business is doing. It's if you have got policies or frameworks that haven't been reviewed for a while, are you confident from a benchmarking perspective that you are in line with the market? Are you, if you want to be above what the rest of the market are doing, or you want to be in line with it, having a look at doing some benchmarking with kind of companies that have data on this, just to again make sure that you are confident that you can say our policies, our processes are competitive. It's not just something people are saying and hoping it's right. You have confidence in saying it. And then if you want to kind of drill even further down, certain items within your policy, so thinking about cost of living allowances, if you're moving people to certain locations, again, you can do really much more specific benchmarking on that, just to again make sure that the COLA that you're offering isn't over generous, so you're not spending too much money, but equally you don't want it to be too far under. So again, I think reaching out and using the data that is out there, and the benchmarking that is out there, just to give you confidence that from a service level you're offering what other people in the market are offering, and from a cost perspective you can kind of defend that to the wider business and say, look, our cost and our pricing on this is kind of similar to where we want to be targeting, getting talent into the business as well.
Maybe some words from my side. In our company, we have policies, of course, and we have stated the certain items or certain positions we can support, and we are internal provider, service provider for business, because at the end of the day, not we, not the global mobility are paying the money for the transferee. This is the business, and we are speaking with the business, talking to them. Okay, if this guy or this lady or this family is important for you, you have to consider, for example, spousal support, because we have a lot of cases where we are talking about a financial risk that because the spouse was not happy in the host country, and that's why they moved back 1 year later, because she didn't get spousal support. She wasn't able to get her Heimisch. We're telling this in Germany, that you at home. She didn't feel her at home. She wasn't really to feel herself that she is supported, and that's why the transfer was cancelled, or they moved back. Cross-cultural training, very important. If the company, if somebody moves within Europe, okay, maybe it's cross-cultural training not really important, but if somebody moves from the States or so to Germany, from Germany to Asia, or from Germany to the Eastern countries, maybe this is really important to provide not only the transferee and not only the employee, but also the spouse with the cross-cultural training. And this items, these positions need to be considered, need to be planned, need to be in the budget. That's why then we can mitigate risks, financial risk for this employment. Yeah.
Thank you. And not only is there financial risk, right? Like regulations change all the time, and it's quite complicated for all the regulations across everything, especially for global organizations trying to keep up to date with everything. So everyone here is super experienced. Like, so what advice would you have for your peers and everyone on this webinar to kind of trying to get up to speed with all the compliance requirements around international relocation, taxation, compliance? Like, what advice do you have?
I would say don't feel like you have to be an expert on everything that's going on, because that's kind of impossible. Everything's changing all the time. That's just the nature of being in a global role. I think a few kind of pieces of advice, especially maybe if you're looking at, if there's someone more junior kind of working their way up in their career, or from a peer's perspective, is just keep being curious. So if it's a case of just spending, if you've got 10-15 minutes of your time during the day, just have a look what's on LinkedIn. If you've got, just see that tends to be a really good place to see what's kind of out there, especially if you're following, specific providers who have an expertise in tax or immigration. Just something as basic as just typing kind of social security news or updates just in Google and just seeing what comes up. Just click the news, the news filter, and that will bring up, good news sites, BBC, The Independent, etc., who will be reporting on kind of actual developments. Because a lot of the time there's a lot of talk of things that might happen, but it's not actually until they've kind of been passed that they'll typically hit the news, which is when it's kind of, real. So just kind of, stay curious, lean onto your network if you're connected with people at, specific firms that specialize and, attend webinars and talks like this are great just to kind of share ideas, but don't feel that you need to know or understand every single item or every single regulation that's changing, because that's impossible. That's too much for one person to try and master. So don't put too much pressure to try and understand everything. Just stay curious and lean on your network and your colleagues, because that's how most people get by when figuring out what's coming down the line in terms of news and updates.
So from my side, I can we have a lot of service providers. They have daily or weekly digests just have a quick look, just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, what is going on in the States, what is going on in the UK, what's going on in Germany. This is just 3-4 sentences, and each day I'm trying to start with such a digest. This is not, you don't need to, as Claire absolutely correct to say it, you don't need to go too deep in this, but you know, okay, you have now you have now somebody who coming from UK to the States. What can be interesting from the immigration perspective? What can be where you can have a problem from the immigration or employment perspective?
Great answers. Great answers. Thank you. And obviously, like it's, as we said before, it's not cheap. There's budget constraints across the board, right? So like what considerations should businesses keep in mind when managing international hiring relocation expenses, like making sure they keep in budget, fight for that budget, etc.
Claire, do you want, or so they? I think from my side, with the budget constraints, we have. I can see some changes in the global policies of a lot of companies. Previously, it was reimbursement. Also, for example, you will get your flights reimbursed, and that's why that's why not the assignee, not transferee, took care of it. But instead, a lot of companies are providing now a lump sum. You're getting, let me say, 10,000 euros for your move with your family. That's it. That's right. From the company's perspective, you have clear understanding, or you have clear budgeting of this amount, and you will not get you will not pay anything on top. From the employee, from the transferees, it is now a little bit difficult to handle this amount, because these amounts are the most of these amounts are gross amounts. It means you need then at the end of the day taxes on this. Some companies providing the net amounts, as they are saying you will get relocation cost on net basis, and the taxes will be paid by us. But it's really it's not the usual case. As a usual case, they providing the gross amounts. And maybe another point is the clear communication to the potential transferee or the transferee about regarding the expense reimbursement policy. Because some if you are just stating you will get your flight reimbursed, boom, then I will fly first class, I will fly business class, and I will take 2 days in London. If I'm flying from the States via London to Germany, I will make some sightseeing there. And if the policy is clear, the policy is clear, they communicated clear, in such case, the company usually don't get problems with transferee, because the transferee is not, they don't want to get rich on this. Also, they just want to work with the company and work for a longer period. That's why they won't break the rules, but they need to know these rules.
Nice. And from a talent acquisition perspective, I manage things get pretty tough when talents try to negotiate higher compensation and more comprehensive relocation support. So where'd you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of seconding, is that a word? Going from what Iaroslav was saying, I fully agree. I think luckily the companies I've worked and I've heard about do give that lump sum, right? And then the person gets to kind of reimburse their flights and travel expenses, etc. And even, what are they called? Like the moving companies or packaging services. That's one way of doing it, or they just get the money, right? And they can use it as they please with the relocation. But just to kind of go off that, I know that sometimes there's budget constraints with relocations, and candidates do try and get higher offers, etc. But I think our duty as recruiters is just to know the whole process, even though we're not facilitating it. There's like a designated person doing it. Just understanding what budget is for someone relocated from the US or from from anywhere, pretty much. Just understanding the differences and what the budget is per location, etc., what the process is, and just communicating that even at the beginning, even if you are just screening the candidate, just setting that baseline level, because then there's no miscommunication throughout the recruitment process, and you can kind of refer that later on if the person has been offered the job, and then you can dive into all the information and all the details of what it entails. How, do we also help the spouse and the children and the dog, etc.? Like, do we provide housing support, like 1 month's rent, etc.? So like really dive into details, I think, more during the offer, and then setting up expectations at the beginning in the screening call. But I think with that, the recruiters should know like what the budget consists of, because like you said, we need to understand how it correlates with like visa applications, etc. Like, is the salary in line with that as well? But companies do need to understand, if anyone's watching and they're trying to get ideas for their companies, that everyone expects like a boutique service to relocate. They don't just want to like have their flights paid for. They want their whole families to move with them, even their pets. They want at least some housing support, so like 1 month's rent or temporary housing. Or we have like I don't know how you call this, it's like a makelaar in Amsterdam in Dutch. It's like a real estate helper, supporter kind of company that's like affiliated with us. So that's also super helpful, because I think I saw one of the questions pop up for later. The housing, it's not a crisis, but just it's very popular in Amsterdam. It's very dense. The population and housing is a bit more tricky to get, but we have like a actual real estate company affiliated with us to help people find a house. So I hope that other companies have that too. So I think when people have in mind, oh, I want to relocate to X country for a job, they expect everything to be taken care of for them. They don't want just the flights and stuff. Like I said, they want a boutique service. I think that's something really important for companies to do. And personally, like if I was a business owner or I worked in a company, I would expect to do the full shabam, the full process, and not just half-ass it and just do 10% of it. So
Exactly.
yeah.
No, great answer. I'm based on time. I think I'm going to ask my closing question now to all three of you. So we've explored quite a lot of different challenges here, had a lot of discussion, but there's only so many hours in a day. Like, which of the topics we talked about do you think is the highest priority, or is your highest priority right now? Yeah. Claire, do you want to start?
Sure. So yeah, I think it's I think what we're seeing is kind of, now that we're, I guess, kind of out of COVID and out of that, slightly weird time when people could work wherever they want. I think, like you said, people are trying to get back to some kind of normal now. And I think what we're seeing is people taking this opportunity to do a bit of a spring clean on their policies, and just, again, like I said, making sure that now we're getting back to some kind of new normal, that people are confident that actually, from a benchmarking perspective, now that things are settling back down, people are in line with market. So we are definitely see people taking this opportunity to, like I said, do a bit of a spring clean, and not only see where their policies are, but also see, is this now time to change things? So maybe move towards more of a lump sum type approach, or, in fact, people still wanting to do that, but with the hand holding and support that Daisy mentioned. So yeah, it's just people taking a bit of a pause in their programs, just to say, look, let's reset ourselves for what we want the new normal to be going forward, and making sure that we're confident from a cost and a support perspective, that we are in a good position from a global mobility standpoint to attract talent, but also to make sure we're managing costs as well.
Iaroslav, Daisy?
From my point, most important topic is now to convince business that the people that work from anywhere is not always possible. This is this is always the question. The question. Oh, we have heard, or we have that somebody can work. Let me say from Mallorca in Ireland in. Spanish Mallorca Island to work for from Switzerland, working employed by German company. It's not possible. It's simply not possible, and we have to take we have to balance the expectations of business that is that such constructions is possible against the requirements of law and tax law and immigration law and so on. This is the maybe now this is the most important topic we currently take care of.
Daisy?
Yeah, I think I was just agreeing with everyone. I think we're all facing similar issues. I think from a talent perspective, it's more about workations. That's like something that keeps popping up. It's really popular. I'm not sure about the UK or Germany, but in the Netherlands, that people want to work remotely for like 4 weeks a year. Anywhere they want, as long as they've got a strong Wi-Fi connection and they can just sit somewhere and do their meetings and stuff, right? That's a really huge demand, and it's the logistics behind it. You know, the companies have to give that responsibility to the employee, right? Like they have to figure out when to go, agree it with the manager, like the logistics behind it, like the visas and stuff like that. So I think just tailoring more to that and companies giving that as a benefit as well is going to increase for sure. And also just I hope it gets easier, because yeah, I mean, a lot of companies are looking to implement that, but putting so much responsibility on the employee, I think it would be great for the company to like support or assist in some way, but there's going to be so many individual cases, particularly if the company is pretty big. How does a company handle that and stuff? But that's one thing that I'm seeing at the moment.
Oh, perfect. Wrapping up, that's quite a nice thing, which is, well, Localyze can help with the compliance checks for workations for you and help all those sorts of A1s and PWDs and visa stuff. So if you're kind of thinking about that, come chat to us. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Claire, Daisy, Iaroslav. We've got some time for Q&A, 5 minutes left. Sorry for kind of overrunning. We will, so we just posted the results of the poll. There you go. Navigating visas, immigration regulations. 68% of people found that the most difficult, most challenging part. Well, good thing again. We're here to help. There's a few questions up here. I'm going to kind of take one from the Q&A box first, which is, when looking at, open to anyone here, when looking to expand global mobility programs, particularly for expansion to hiring and education of more junior members, how do you overcome the financial business barriers that you encounter? Obviously, for senior execs, it's probably a lot easier to convince people that you can have a huge budget or lump sum, but for more junior members, it might be quite difficult. Open to anyone on the floor.
We've typically seen, yeah, you're right. I think it's making sure within your program that you've got flexibility. You know, I think, again, historically moves tended to be at a more senior level, but we are definitely seeing now a lot of businesses focus on talent pipeline and say, look, if we want our kind of more junior staff to be able to develop and grow into those senior positions, having international experience is, you know, really key and important to that. So it's maybe a case of looking at existing policies which may be more designed to target more senior employees, which may be more financially generous, and then going, look, where can we kind of maybe, you know, we don't necessarily need to give, you know, a 3-bedroom apartment. Can we think about like an Airbnb type scenario? So there's areas where you definitely can, you know, lower the cost without lowering the experience. So I think it's, you know, having a mindset, yes, there is a level of investment, but actually your return on that investment will hopefully be experience that junior employee gets, and they can build that and grow within the company.
I can only agree with Claire. And just the young people who came from other more junior specialists who came from abroad, they're usually not married, they have no children. That's why we don't really need to calculate huge amount of costs, which usually needed for the more senior expert who has 20-25 years experience, and that's why we are trying to make also to use our table to provide certain services for younger people, which is really shrinked in comparison to the people who have more seniority. Yeah.
If I can just jump in super quick, it really depends, right? Like, because normally in a place like Amsterdam, for example, there's so much talent that you can fill a junior position, locally. But I have relocated people for internships at bigger companies as well. And it's just about fighting for that person, right? Like, I think I relocated recently someone to our German office in ESPRIT, and they were quite junior as well. But we made sure that their salary was in line with their masters and with the visa, etc. Like, we gave them a pretty good deal for them to relocate and come to our German ESPRIT office. So it's just about our duty, right? Like, if we can't find this talent locally and it has to be a relocation case and it is a junior profile, then we have to follow the rules. We have to adhere to that and give them what they're worth, but also what's in line with the visa regulations and the relocation regulation as well. I think that's the only fair answer from a recruitment perspective.
Nice, thank you. Probably only have time for one more question. So what role do you all see in like technology playing in facilitating? Like, we spoke about all this sorts of stuff here, but like, what role does technology play in facilitating global mobility, particularly in terms of data management, compliance, privacy, and all those sorts of things?
I'll go. I'll be super quick. So I think it's interesting. It's definitely, again, AI and all that is very much the buzzwords at the moment. And I think we will get to a position in the future where policies essentially refine themselves. So with feedback will be entered into almost an AI type system, which almost adjusts contracts and policies based on feedback from employees where relevant, which will be really interesting to see where that goes. That's almost kind of quite theoretical, but I definitely see that happening. But I also think within mobility, there will always be a need to have a person behind it. People will always have individual needs and wants, and they'll also always want to connect with a person. So I don't think our roles will be redundant. I think they'll change, and it'll be really interesting to see where that ends up, how the two kind of merge as that develops.
Nice. Just thank you for that, Claire. Just based on timing, we are at the top of the hour. So thank you, all three of you, for joining me on this webinar. Thanks for everyone for listening and sticking with us the whole way. If anyone wants to ask any more questions, if you drop an email to marketing@localizeapp.com, post it in the chat, drop that over there, and we'll do our best to kind of get you some answers. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
for having us. It was a
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Bye. Hope
Thank you
people
so
learn from
much.
this.
Thank you.